All right. Just waiting on Christian to join. That should be. Let's see where he's at. It's been a lot of fun doing these. I'm glad Christian is agreeing to come back on and do this. We did a podcast last week. It's not out. Probably won't be out for a few weeks. Actually, probably won't be out for a month. But, yeah. Just waiting on Christian. I guess for anybody who potentially is watching, Christian and I did a podcast episode last week. It will, won't be out for a little while, but we hit it off pretty well. I haven't decided if I'm going to leave in a lot of the weird tangents we go on, because in listening to some of the podcasts I like to listen to, I think some of the fun things are when the host and the guest basically are able to kind of just weave in and out of conversations. So for me, it's hard to know what people want to hear if people want to hear the random shit we're talking about. Usually I try to get a little bit better about making sure to segue it back, but when I'm editing it, I'm usually like, no one gives a fuck what I have to say and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. If I keep it the way it is, with very minimal editing, it'll be about an hour and a half of Christian and I just bullshitting. When we talk about the solo record that he's got coming up, obviously we don't touch on El Nino. There's really no point. Also, if you're expecting that, potentially, there's not really going to be any of that either. So, just no point. That he can't talk about it. So it makes it a lot easier when you know someone can't talk about something straight out the gate. Come on, Christian, where you at? Make me send you a text message. Oh, man. Let's see if he's going. There he is. There he is. And there he is.
Oh, damn. What's up, brother?
How you doing, man?
Chilling. What are you up to, man?
Having a couple of drinks.
What you got? What you drinking?
I got this lighthearted Bells.
Oh, damn. Oh, you got the blue? You got the little PBR going? Right
yeah.
on.
And I got
I'm making some bad decisions. Not as many. Just smoking a cigar. And got a little Perrier. What's up with the Perrier,
okay.
bro? This is some fancy shit, huh?
Yeah, I used to remember seeing, all the celebrities on cribs, talking about Cristal, and I always thought it was like super fancy or whatever. And then, I go to the grocery store and I just see Cristal Light everywhere. I don't really think it's that special.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not. I only drank on the road pretty much, just to loosen the nerves.
It was only 23 hours.
Yeah, just to loosen the nerves really is what it was. And I really didn't. It's not like I drank during the day. I just like a couple of shots right before the stage just to loosen the nerves. But then I think all musicians go through periods, at least most do. The ones that are lucky, usually you go through periods and like you try something on tour and then you're like, oh, that didn't work that good. Let me try something else. But what you up to, man? How you handling? I got a couple of notes of things like people were asking and stuff, but let's bullshit a little bit first,
Yeah.
What you up
I was
to?
just basically saying that we did a podcast a week ago. That probably won't be out for about a month, at least. It'll be out closer to your record coming out, which I think is somewhere around September-ish, maybe. Who knows?
Right on.
So just kind of saying that, we were able to do, really cool conversation, kind of went all over the place. and I was like kind of saying like I don't really know like how much of it I want to keep in, or if I just want to like streamline it straight to like just kind of more of the interview based kind of thing. But I kind of listened back to it a little bit, and I'm like, man, I'm always like I was telling you, I was like, it's so hard because it's like you listen to like you and Doc on the X-Man podcast, and I was like, oh, it's so cool like when they're just bullshitting about stuff because that's when it's more real and interesting tangents happen, and then it's like when it's like, all right, well, let's steer it back to where we were, and then it's just like, is that what people really want to hear, or like I don't know, like I told you, I was like, sometimes I do this shit, and I'm just like, no one gives a fuck what I have to say. I'm not Doc Coyle, who's been on the road for 20 some odd years and toured with all these bands and has fun stories. It's just like secondhand accounts of stuff. This experiences I've had, it just sounds like I'm almost like name dropping for the sake of fucking name dropping.
Well, you recently had a good friend of mine on there. You had Lindsay from Cold, right?
Yeah,
she's super badass.
Yeah.
She's awesome. She lives like I don't know, 20 minutes from where I live. She lives in Fallbrook.
Oh,
I'm in Temecula. Yeah. It's like a cool little area out here,
Yeah, it was.
Was that a good interview with Lindsay?
Yeah. So, fuck, I don't know. Okay, I'll say it like this. It was a good interview.
Tell me something. Come on, I want to light a cigar. Tell me something.
All right. So, sometimes because of the nature of our show, where I as the person and my co-host on the front side of things, the intros and outros, we might talk about a beer. Like last night, I did something different and had my co-host pick out of my 3 beers I had him pick what he wanted me to drink and try on the show.
You got a pen with you? My homie Bobby asked, how was it like working with Marco Siega? Write that down really quick. Not a weed pen. Not a weed pen. A real pen, man.
I have my MacBook over here, so let me
just write down Marco Siega, and we'll answer it in a little bit after you tell me the Lindsay interview.
Yeah. So basically, on occasion, I'm probably spelling that name wrong, but I don't care. But it turns into a thing sometimes where because of that, we've had people, most notably Scott Stapp, won't agree to do the show because it's because of us talking about alcohol or whatever, even though the brew kind of is more of a pun on like you and I having a brutally honest conversation about shit or whatever.
Right.
Because that's kind of what happens on the show on occasion. And they were like, he's really strong in his sobriety, which is awesome. But we've also had people come on and talk about their sobriety. I had Tommy Victor Prong come on, and he's like, oh, I was really nervous to do the show because I don't drink. And I kind of turned him around at the end. He's like, oh, man, like you really kind of like asked me some really interesting questions. And I'm really glad I didn't turn this interview down because of, I don't drink and you're a drinking show. And I was like, well, we are, but that's not the crux of the show. The crux of the show is this. The meat and potatoes is the interview you're hearing. The rest of it is just kind of filler on the outside. So same thing kind of happens on occasion with some of these bands.
That is funny that Scott Stapp didn't want to do the show because the word brew is on it.
Yeah, so something I've kind of
That's
said.
Amazing.
We ran into that with Cold. Basically, Scooter is sober, and that's great. What's up, Matt? It's one of those things where I was bummed that he wouldn't come on. Because my thing with it is this, and I'll ask you this, and see if you think, as someone who had to do a bunch of press and shit, if I'm being a fucking asshole for thinking this way. But to me, it's like, if you won't come on a show where you're a publicist and you can listen to the show and realize that, like, that's not the crux of the interview and it's not really what the show is all about. It's not a one-trick pony. But the way I kind of approached it and had been thinking about it and kind of getting a little upset about it is, if you won't come on my show because of a name, because it threatens, I don't want to say threatens, because it might be an issue with your sobriety, then you should never go to a club and play shows. You shouldn't take any of the extra money you stand to make as an artist because you hit a certain bar goal, and you should never play you should only just play VFW halls. Because
it's definitely true that if you're in rock and roll, you have to accept that there's a culture of, and I don't, we probably shouldn't generalize it to just rock and roll, because there's probably a culture of partying in every, like, niche or whatever you want to call it. But for sure, it's weird that someone wouldn't want to do, like, I'm trying to think of the first time I heard of your show. At first, I thought it was BREWtally. Like, when I heard the name, I thought it was BREWtally. Like, you're like a brutal band, Or,
Oh, BREWtally. I got you.
Yeah. At first, I thought it was like oh, okay, it's like brutally speaking, like you could basically say whatever. That's the first thing I took away from the show.
Right.
You could basically say whatever you want to say. Nobody's really gonna like judge you or anything like that.
Yeah.
But then when I read that it was brew, I don't know, it didn't even like hit me. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, always the thing that stuck about the name of the show was, oh, it's a show about being as open as possible or something like that.
The goal. That's what I want. Like, I want people to go on. I mean, my co-host made a joke one night because my last name is Beatty, and he was like, "Oh, you make all the headlines. You should call the show Click Beatty." And I was like, "No, no one will come on that show." But I was like, "I like that pun. That's a fucking clever name." But we went for
Clickbaity.
the yeah, we went for brutally speaking instead.
Oh, damn.
I guess
Yeah,
to kind
man.
of
I
set
mean,
the
it's a
point
beautiful
that
day. What you got going on over there? What's the weather like where you're at?
it was a nice day. It's actually like 80 some odd degrees. So I'm mowed half my lawn today because I'm super pale and I don't like being out in the hot. So I only mowed half my lawn. The front half you can see, and then I'll do the back half tomorrow.
Right on. Yeah, I didn't have no funky work like that going on, dude. It's just a regular, nice, beautiful California day. It's been like this pretty much the whole time, dude. I'm lucky where I'm at. I can come outside. We're on a cul-de-sac. I could just hang or walk to the park, you know. But some
Yeah,
people are like living in concrete jungles and really having to deal with some bullshit, you know.
yeah,
It's terrible. But
yeah.
luckily for me, man, I've been chilling out here, pretty much just enjoying the sun. Lucky to be outside for sure. Shit.
Yeah, Michigan. Some of Michigan is dealing with floods right now, so that's been the news of the day.
What's going on in Michigan?
Midland is dealing with floods, about like 9 feet of water, like a
Oh
dam I guess
shit.
broke or something. So like, I mean, it's not a joke, but I kind of made like the comment earlier today. I was like, so we have a plague, we have a swarm coming, and we have a flood. What were some of the other bullshits that were happening in the Bible that apparently were signing the end times?
Yeah, fire,
Yeah. Well, I guess we already
firemen,
had those. We already had those.
volcanoes. Yeah, volcanoes and fires and what else? What else did they predict in the Bible? Um, well, nah, I'm thinking more Nostradamus. Nostradamus predicted that somebody was going to come from the Far East, right? It was like the Far East. Some power figure would rise and challenge the world or something like that. Which when Kim Jong Un was when the news was going around that he was probably dead or something, I was like, "Fuck, Nostradamus was right. It's his sister. His sister's gonna fuck everything up."
Did they
I was
allow
like, Nostradamus was talking about Kim Jong Un's sister.
did they allow women of power over there in the over there?
I don't know. Maybe it was like some misinformation campaign put out. It could have been just some misinformation campaign put out over here to like, if she didn't go into power, you know, then they'd be able to talk garbage about them or something. I don't know. But apparently he's still alive, which was shocking
Oh, is
because
he?
they were
I
coming out. Yeah, they were coming out with everything that he's saying. He's dead. He's dead. He's probably dead or died or, you know, a failed surgery or something like that.
Yeah. Created some interesting memes, like the one of the grape, with
Why
the.
don't they just call Dennis Rodman? You think Dennis Rodman knows what's going on with Kim Jong Un?
I don't know. As I've learned in doing some of these
You
interviews,
guys, if anybody's watching, y'all think Dennis Rodman knows what's going on with Kim Jong Un?
I mean, he probably has him on speed dial.
Because they're pretty good buddies, right? That was like the way they
Yeah,
presented that relationship was they're really good friends, and he visits a lot, and he knows him well.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny for as big of a
What's
Dennis
up, Eddie
Rodman.
Torres is on. What's up, rock and roll beard dude?
How you doing, man?
I wonder if Dennis Rodman knows what's up with Kim Jong Un, dude. I've been thinking about that. When that shit came out, the first thing that popped in my head was like, what does Dennis Rodman have to say about this?
I don't know. It's funny because like as a huge fan of his, like he was doing that bullshit of like, oh, I'm leaving Instagram and blank amount of days, and then as far as I know, never did. But it was all like to boost his podcast that I think was short lived as well. I don't know. It was weird. He was like talking to like more or less strangers. Like he was talking to this couple that I swear was like 16 and 18 about their like crazy sex life and shit. I was like, ugh,
Well,
I'm always
he's
on.
always been a freak. He's always been a freaky ass dude doing freaky things, and I'm a huge fan of his playing as well. I mean, he was
Yeah.
one. You know, he was one of the guys that really he stood up for individualism for sure in the league. You know, and I
Well,
thought
I
that
look
was a
the way
great
I
guy at the
do.
time. Yeah.
But let's get on to the one question we have at least with Marco Siega. Wanted to talk a whole bunch of shit about working with him.
Marco Siega was awesome, man. He was a director at the time that had really good relationships with a lot of record companies. Had a really good relationship with Bobby Carlton, who was managing us at the time. I think I think it was mostly through Andy Gould. We were being managed by Andy Gould, and he had some really good, friends in the industry. Marco Siega was one. I believe he introduced them to Roadrunner Records, and Roadrunner was interested in doing the video, and the video was a shitload of money. I mean, it was the most expensive video we had ever done, and we had done the God Save Us video, which was recorded in California in a theater at a university. I don't remember exactly what university it was. Mike Gitter, our A&R guy, probably remembers it because he was there. He booked it.
Mm.
And it was $10,000 to shoot the video, and all we did, because back then everything was on film. This is God Save Us. Now what comes around? This was our first video ever. Like Roadrunner didn't want to drop,
Right.
the money bag yet. They were still feeling it out. Like, we don't know if this shit's gonna do good, And in defense to them, at the time there was a lot of bands and labels were throwing things at the wall, seeing what fans liked mostly. But we did the God Save Us video, and it was literally, we showed up at the university, like at 12. We
Mm-hmm.
did 3 takes. We did 3 takes of the song. We set up, took about an hour, did 3 takes of the song, and left. And then that was edited, and that was $10,000. That was $10,000. And everything was on film. The video actually is really cool, and they had like projectors. I don't know if you could tell. People that watch the God Save Us video, you might be able to tell. There's like images kind of floating past the performance. That wasn't done in post. That was actually a projector that was there. Back in the day, everything had to be done. Most
Practical.
of the things had to be done, the real way. There was like no put it in the computer and then like, add some flashes and stuff like that. I think that there was some things they could do, but obviously, even with $100,000-$200,000 budget back in the day, you didn't have the expenditure to do those kind of things. But God Save Us was 10 G's. That was like a quick shoot video. And then Marco Siega was the next video. I guess Roadrunner felt at the time, okay, they have good management. They have their manager is well connected, knows really good directors, and it's probably the right time to shoot a video for this song. I think What Comes Around has started getting on radio and stuff like that. So they definitely dropped the money bag on that one big time. And I think the budget was $250,000, but it wound up being closer to $3. When it was all finalized, it wound up being like about $300,000. And he did videos. He did like System of a Down videos.
Yep.
He
And you
did
do
the
a POD
Chop
one too.
Suey video. He did the POD video. Yeah, yeah. And those videos, I think, were even more expensive than our videos.
I think
I
there's a
think
lot
those
of CGI.
videos, yeah, like a live video might have been almost closer to $1 million if now that I can think about it.
I have a weird question, kind of speaking to that song. Obviously, you guys re-recorded some of the songs on the record in Spanish,
Right.
and this might be a really weird question. I just literally thought of it. Did Roadrunner push both versions of the singles to different radio, and like that became kind of like a literally a bilingual dual advertising thing to try to get the song to react in two different technical formats between maybe Latin radio and regular terrestrial radio?
They didn't go with anything Latin to terrestrial radio in the U.S. That was mostly
Right.
just for them to go to pitch to like, South American radio stations, mostly Central Mexico, Argentina, Spain. That was mainly the markets that I think that impacted. At least I remember going to Mexico and hearing like the kids say, are you going to do, how can I live or what comes around in Spanish tonight?
Right.
And I would usually mix it up. Towards later on in the career, I think I just wound up singing it in English because most kids were used to hearing it that way. So that's what they wanted to hear and wanted to sing back.
Right.
Um, but but yeah, I mean, it was just interesting times. That's definitely all I got to say about that.
It was just one of those that I know, like, state labels and such will do kind of weird tactics to kind of keep a band in the red. So it was one of those where I was like, you know what? I don't think I've ever thought about, because obviously most people in most interviews are kind of focused solely here in the States or, maybe European markets and so forth. But you were in the unique position where they could kind of shop you playing a version of the song to a completely different demographic that speaks a different language. And, thinking about it, kind of thinking more through it, I'm remembering, Justin Bieber when he did Despacito, even though that's not his song, that apparently his Latin fan base and just went fucking apeshit because they're like, oh my God, it's the first time I'm hearing him sing in my native tongue. And so
Mm-hmm.
thinking about how big that is for some people, that it made me wonder if it was like kind of one of those weird things where Roadrunner's like, yeah, we're going to push the single also in other markets that speak Spanish or whatever. And then you're like, oh, okay, cool. But they're like, okay, now they just doubled your radio budget. Or they treated
Yeah,
it as a singular song and then didn't do that. So I don't know. It's just kind of a weird question.
yeah. I don't know what kind of budget they did have for any kind of radio in international territories. I mean, I'm sure they had to have pushed it somehow, but I don't necessarily recall in the U.S. it having anything caught on or anything like that. Um, it was kind of like a bipolar kind of promotional move, where we're going to use, they knew we were a Latino band. So I did a couple of versions of songs in Spanish. And, I don't think they were planning on really crossing any of that over to the U.S., kind of like Justin Bieber did. He was really, really lucky, though, because he already had a ton of Latin fans that probably loved him,
Yeah.
So for all those Latino teenagers, it was probably like, oh my God, he's doing a song in Spanish.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that was the funny thing is when they wanted him to do the song, he's like, man, I don't know how to, I don't know the lyrics. And then over the beat just kept saying like ignorant shit like Dorito and Doritos and other
Well,
Edo words. And then you're just like, that's so terrible.
someone had asked what it felt like to play Vive Latino. Vive Latino was probably one of the coolest shows we ever played, man. It was like 50,000 people in a stadium in Mexico, and it was with the Mars Volta and a lot of cool other acts. But just wanted to throw that in there really quick before I forgot that I saw that. But with Despacito, going back to that, it is funny though, because as an artist, you could view it two ways. You could view it as a conditioned artist that's been in the studio 10 million times and seen and witnessed how everything works, or you could view it as a listener, and as a listener, for sure, Despacito has the more, innocent listening, pleasurable experience, if you know what I mean. Because you're
Yeah.
just listening, it's just a song, you're not judgmental, there isn't, this, oh, I know who Justin Bieber is, I know what he's done, and things like that. But from an artistic point of view, I almost, I was happy. I was happy for him because I thought Justin Bieber is a talented artist. It doesn't matter if he's an asshole on his own personal life or whatever. Whatever
Right.
he does is his fucking problem. But as long as he's not hurting people, whatever he does is really his issue. But when Despacito came out, I thought it was a great move that he did business wise.
Yeah.
But artistically, as an artist and a Latino artist, you're like, oh God, he was in the studio and they were punching in every single word, and and they were like, oh, you got to pronounce that a little bit better, and they probably went word by word. I imagine, I don't know, because to sing a song and then not remember what you sang at all, and not even remember how some of the words are pronounced, is
Yeah.
pretty telling. It's pretty
Yeah.
telling from a studio point of view of what might have been done, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because like I've seen, I think most notably Jonathan Davis and Korn. I know Ozzy has the teleprompter on stage. I can't remember if Ivan from Five Finger has one too. And it just makes me wonder if it's like, is it there in case only in case they forget, or do they just go out there and they're like, whatever, I'm not even really looking at the set list, like fuck it, like just that's going to be kind of my catch-all to be like, oh, we're doing this now, okay, like here's the because I know like some people I've heard where they're like, oh, I kind of forgot a song or whatever, and then once like the first 2 to 3 words came out, I was like, oh fuck, there it is, and you quickly fall right back into it because you obviously
That's
typically wrote it or whatever. But I think it speaks more sometimes to, at least in Justin Bieber's thing, I don't think he wrote any of his lyrics, and that's why he doesn't remember them because he didn't have to commit pen to paper. He probably was like, here's your song, or here's our song, here's what you're saying, and we're probably punching you in for every word or teaching you a sentence so we can get through a sentence at a time. Copy paste it all
they
together.
they might have even had like a linguist there.
Probably.
You know, somebody who could like coach him through the pronunciations. They might have, and for sure it was Louis Fonsi that wrote the lyric. It wasn't.
Yep. Yeah, he was on an episode of Songland or Songbird or whatever the other day. I don't know if you watched that show at all.
Yeah, very cool show actually. I've only seen like 1 or 2 episodes, but for a songwriter, as a songwriter, it is cool to watch other songwriters work. I don't care what anybody has to say about what kind of music they're doing. When you're a songwriter, you listen as a songwriter first, and then if you get to your judgmental, more conditioned mind, conclusions.
Funny, I was watching that the other day, and I think I've kind of stumbled across a formula for it in the fact that I think they grab songs that will be the song that you'll end up hearing someone pick, the artist pick, that they basically can tear down. Like it might be like, oh, there's a cool hook, or there's a cool melody, like musical melody in it, but they can tear down the rest of it and then basically rebuild it. Because I was like, I don't, and I've been trying to find the ins and outs of the show so I can kind of see if I'm right. But I think if my line of thinking, just knowing how the industry side of shit works, I feel like they would do that because then they would only have to pay someone a very finite amount of royalties if they even pay them. Because then at that point it'll be like, well, we only took this part of your song and then we built 99% of it around your one idea. So either here's the royalty for that, or I don't know if they sign away their publishing or whatever, because it wouldn't surprise me if they sign away the rights to the music or whatever that they create or pitch on the show.
Well, for sure. I could tell you how it kind of works in the pop world with songwriters. Definitely, you're giving away, at least half of your publishing, at least. And most of the time, when you have a big songwriter like that work with you on one song, if you're not hiring them for the whole album, the price for the one song is going to be almost the same price that they would charge you for the whole album. Because what would occur is you got these amazing songwriters that know what people will take to, There's, in the pop world, I imagine there's people out there that know what pop people are going to want to listen to, and they structure things certain ways. They begin things in certain places to make sure that it's something that the pop world will accept. But, I imagine some of it is very clinical, and how are we going to make it happen? And some of it, I imagine, has to be chemistry. Really, the producer there hearing at that moment what the artist wants to do in his mind, concluding, will that work in a promotional world? And sometimes there is such a thing as a songwriter who will just change a word or two just to try to take publishing on it, I mean, a credit thief could steal your credit just the same way you could steal credit for a song. He could steal your credit card, He could be, somebody could be in a room with you. Somebody could be in a room with you while you're writing a song. And, God forbid they even like make a dumb suggestion. They could be like, oh, well, I suggested this when he was writing the song.
I think that's an interesting thing about, First of all, I find that show interesting because most of the people they have on the show are pretty prolific producers in their own right, like making songs with other artists. So I find it interesting that they come on a show where I'm like, but this is sort of what you do. So other than just name brand recognizability for the show aspect, why even have people on? But like, there's a dude that lives out here that is now in the Verve. Like, he was in a band called the Las Vegas in the mid to late '90s that got signed, kind of just like an actual like a great like radio rock band. And he was telling some wild ass stories about how he became a songwriter, but like not in the sense of getting any pub or anything like that. Literally writing a song, and then like, so a label would come to him and go, "Hey, we're working on the next Kelly Clarkson. This is the story. Working on this next Kelly Clarkson record. We would like you to write 3 songs. We were thinking, like the first single kind of a song, upbeat, about 2.5 to 3 minute song, very hook driven. We want a ballad, and then we want kind of something in between. We'll come back to you in 2 weeks. Get back to him in 2 weeks. He presents the songs. Hey, we don't really like the ballad. The other one's kind of but man, we think this one song, we think that's the hit. We think that's the lead-off single. We'll give you $10,000 for it. Just, we get it from there on out. You don't have anything. You don't get any points, no publishing, no nothing. Mm-hmm. We just give you $10,000 for your song. And then this is the fun thing that he told me. He's like, sometimes I would go back and be like, I'm working on some new stuff with my band or my solo record. And I really love this song and it means a lot to me. So I don't think I can do it. And they'll come back and throw another number at him, and then like, I don't think I can let it go for anything less than $120,000. And then it just turns into this thing where, he was like, I don't know how many songs I sold to these producers and shit, where I was like, I literally wrote that song in 5 fucking minutes. It doesn't mean anything to me, but I knew that they wanted it. So why the fuck wouldn't I drive up my price and get my $100,000? Because it's not like I'm going to get it on the back end. So I'm basically, this is my one-time shot at making as much as I can off this. So fuck it, why wouldn't I? And
and especially if they want the song, and they really, and if they already told you, we like the song a lot, they're already in their mind, they're already onto the budget. What do we have to get the song? Yeah, that's interesting. But what else did he tell you about having to pitch songs and shit? That's interesting to know about. I mean, that's really cool storytelling right there.
No, I mean, like, and that's kind of the thing, like, that's why when I do the podcast, sometimes I kind of tend to over-explain, because I don't want people to think that, like I said, that I'm either name-dropping or I'm just talking on my ass. Like, I want people to know that, like, I'm kind of have a knowledge based on tribal knowledge, basically. I have the tribal knowledge people have kind of passed on to me through stories of being on the road or, being a songwriter or being, different avenues within the music industry. And so that's why I love talking about the business side of things, because I don't think people really know how it works. And I'm not saying I necessarily know
for sure not.
Else, but I have been told some really fucking crazy stories. Like even, like the guy I was just kind of talking about, like he's kind of talked about how, there have been instances where, a label or a producer or whatever will throw a fuckload of money at him for this song, and then they buy it, and then that song never even gets released.
Yeah,
I thought it was so great. Why is a band or a label willing to throw that much money at something and then do nothing with it? Like, what's the point of that? And then I start thinking about, like I made the joke earlier about, recoupability. I've read stories about Victory, and I know you guys are on this label, but read stories about Victory where to keep bands in the red, a band might have a fucking platinum record, but they were taking out end caps at Best Buy because it would keep the band from recouping, and they didn't have to pay the band back. Oh, well, I'm sorry, you're $20,000 in the hole because we took out an end cap ad at Best Buy. Or I only use these because these are publicly out there, but they would take out a full page ad in alt press or whatever, put 6 bands on it, but charge each band for the full page ad. Because
there's ways that labels do things. That is for sure. It's super important if you're an artist and you're going to sign to a label. Very important that you have a little bit of business sense.
Yeah.
In the beginning of my career, I didn't have any business sense, but
I don't think
I was lucky. I was lucky that we were on a decent label.
Yeah.
And we had a good lawyer at the time for sure. But yeah, there's all sorts of weird investing that a label could do and charge the artist 3, 4, 5 times what it really costs. Sometimes they'll charge the artist for promotion campaigns and base it on a,
Bigger
you
artist.
know, 2-3 month fee of what the PR firm would be charging. But sometimes the labels have those people on a yearly fee and they're paying them just monthly, you know?
Right.
But they still want the artist to recoup based on the full rate of promotion, basically, is what occurs.
Yeah.
And
It's
it's similar with some things. Some things, like, for example, some things that are creative, labels don't necessarily fully recoup on. And there's some things artists could really push a label, you know, to help them create, like videos and art and images and stuff like that. Anything that's graphical like that and visual, labels really don't fully recoup on that. So that's like the one thing that, you know, an artist can kind of, you know, bargain for or ask for and stuff like that, or demand, even depending who you are, I guess.
right. Here's a fun random question. So I made the comment to you. I had texted you that I was like, oh, I found a handful of photos when looking for a photo of you, where they were actually just photos of Sonny from POD. How often have you gotten confused for each other?
I've gotten confused for Sonny a couple times for sure.
Do you know
Definitely
if
when I was
you?
definitely when I was younger, you know. Now I think I've grown older and I don't look as much like Sonny. We can't be confused as much, but for sure in the beginning, you know, a lot of times, you know, because POD was massive.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we see POD now settled into like their thing, but when POD came out, it was fucking massive, dude. You know, like the video was being played on MTV all the time. I remember going to Europe and being on a was it was from Denmark to mainland Europe. I don't necessarily remember what the ferry was, but I remember like seeing their videos on the ferry for commercials and being like, "Holy fuck, they're fucking massive!" Like that's on a completely whole other level. Almost like POD was almost pop culture massive. You know, I would say that they were almost close to a household name during a time.
I think what's wild, and I was kind of thinking about this today actually, because one of the podcasts I was listening to was talking about just a lot of the things that we've gone through as a society of our age, roughly, you know, in our mid 30s to 40s, all the shit we've gone through, you know, between 9/11 and, you know, natural disasters and all these kind of two economic downfalls and so forth, and all this shit basically. And something I was kind of thinking about and all that was thinking about how 9/11 affected the industry. Like I remember I was supposed to get Jay-Z's Blueprint record. It came out 9/11 because that was when records came out on Tuesdays or whatever. And
Yeah,
I
our
couldn't.
Revolution was supposed to come out on that Tuesday, and it was postponed to the following week.
Okay.
Our
See, I
first album
remember.
was supposed to come out on 9/11.
Okay. Because I remember I had to wait until everything kind of hit. Like, because I was a senior in high school, so I had to wait until, and that was 9 days before my birthday too. So um,
Wow.
that was like my birthday gift from my parents. That's all I wanted, and I had to wait about a week before I could go get it because like there's just all this uncertainty about going to stores and public gatherings and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of thinking about how you hear some bands talk about like we were supposed to put a record on this day or we put a record out and then that happened and then touring kind of got shot to shit and all that kind of stuff. Just thinking about how it kind of mirrors what we're going through right now, kind of not as serious because obviously people were still able to tour. People just chose not to go out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but unbeknownst to me, I didn't realize that Revolution was basically supposed to come out that time. How did that affect you guys? Other than back.
Well, it was scary, definitely scary. We were in New York when that happened.
Hmm.
But how it impacted us, you know, with the music and the business end of things. The record on Wikipedia, the album still has a release date of September 11th. Like if you go on Wikipedia and you look up the album, it still says that it came out on September 11th. But the album really came out September 18th or 17th or something like that. It was pushed back 1 week. I don't know if the Blueprint, the Jay-Z pushed the record back 1 week. He still put
Nope,
it out
he
on
put
the
it up.
11th.
Yep.
I know some albums did come out. I'm not sure. I know Roadrunner pushed it back 1 week. But I think for us, man, we were lucky we didn't have any songs that were violently titled on the album, you know, because I do remember that there was acts that had, like, Drowning Pool had Let the Bodies to the Floor, and that got taken off the radio for like almost a year. A couple of other acts, I know that my friends from 40 Below Summer had a single called Falling Down when that occurred, and that got taken off the radio because of the title. So it was an uncertain time, for sure. I don't think anybody really, you know, the people that were still getting airplay and that they still had their songs on radio were lucky, because, you know, a lot of people were getting pulled off the air because of violent lyrical content, and, you know, the stations were being very careful about what kind of message they were putting out there after what occurred and all that. But we were impacted in that the label moved the album back 1 week. We already had a tour booked with Machine Head to go to Europe, and I do remember most of the band wanted to cancel the tour. I remember I argued against it, and, you know, basically pleaded and said, I realize we're from New York and this is happening here, but this is like one of the biggest opportunities we have, is to go open for Machine Head in Europe. And yeah, and I mean, we stuck to it. We went, and it was, I don't know, I think we left like a month after 9/11, maybe a month and a half after 9/11. And it was an uncertain time, but we did feel like rebels, you know, renegades maybe a little bit, because you're out there not canceling things and still kind of saying, you know, fuck it, if they're not going to cancel, we're not going to cancel, and we're going to do it for people. So you feel like this slight rebellious mentality against what is occurring, not necessarily against like people or the media or anything like that. But it was an amazing tour. Without that tour, if we would have canceled that tour, our European career would have probably taken years to really unfold.
So I don't remember the year that you were on Ozfest. I want to say it was 02? Maybe.
Yes, 02. Yeah.
What I've only been to one, and a friend of mine was on it. I can't remember. Did I tell you about how my friend being on tour teching and tour managing for Uncle? Did I tell you about that?
Oh yeah. You told me a little bit about it. Yeah.
Okay. What's a fun memory you have from Ozfest?
From Ozfest?
Sure.
Oh man, my most fond memory from Ozfest is Phil Anselmo passing out on our bus a couple times, and his crew having to come and get him, having to first go and find him because they didn't know which bus he was on. And, you know, at the Ozfest there's 40 buses, and when you got somebody missing and your bus has to leave, you know, the tour manager usually does the rounds and stuff. But that's my most fond memory, other than obviously the shows. You know, the shows were really what it was about. I remember Dino from Fear Factory played a song with us in LA on stage. You know, I think Mark from Chimera in Cleveland came on stage to do a song. You know, I remember making great friendships with people then that I didn't know would last this long, you know?
Yeah, it's funny. We just had Willie Adler on a couple weeks ago, and I told my co-host the story of because I went to 2 dates on that Ozfest. I was actually, a friend of mine that was on it was like, so bored and alone, because it was like his first big tour he had really done, and he was like, one of the dudes on our crew quit, so like I could split some of my money if you want to come out for the last 2.5 weeks on this thing. Like, you'll have your crew taken care of, the tour, whether you travel with us. And he was like, "Well, you know, you have to take the guitar and all that shit, so like I could teach you how to like do some of the stuff I need done to like help me." And I thought about it, and I was like, "Man, my parents." I was like, "Yo, I'm just going on tour."
You just took off.
And
you just took off.
Yeah, and he was like stressing so hard that day. He was like, "Dude, just like we're gonna be in Detroit in like a week, so just come on for like a week. If you don't like it, you just fucking get off in Detroit, and you're cool. Like, it's whatever." But like he was super, like I said, super homesick. And I remember like really thinking about it, and then like the H2 Ocean girls were like, "Oh, we're going to Atlanta tomorrow on my day off to go to Brandon Bond's shop," and I was like, "Holy fuck!" Like getting free tattooed by Brandon Bond when he was like at the top of his fucking game in the industry. And then it was like, oh, and then like if everything works out, like and you want to keep doing this, like we have a tour within this moment because in this moment was like the baby band on that tour that year that I went. And I was like, it was like, so we have another tour already ready to go, and then like another one to start December, like December into the new year. And I was like, and I just said no. And I kind of always think like, man, the last year basically of Ozfest when I went, I think that was the last year. Was the year it was free, but it's like all the people that I've met.
Wait, the last time you went to Ozfest, it was free?
Yeah, it was a free year.
That's right. They made it free.
And Lamb of God was
Shit.
the support for Ozzy, and Hatebreed was the second stage.
How the fuck did we all forget that Ozfest was free for 1 year?
Yep.
Damn.
And it brought out a lot of interesting people.
Oh, really? Was it
yeah.
like that? It was like a freak show out there?
It was interesting. I remember seeing Mike the Miz, and I had only, because he had just started wrestling for WWE, and I was like, oh, I think this is that dude from the real world. And because like when I was side stage for Hatebreed, I looked across and I saw him, and I was like, this dude's getting down, but he's like fucking jacked. And I was like, who the fuck is this guy? Why does he look so familiar? And I remember walking through the pavilion at one point, saw him at the WWE tent, and I was like, oh, okay, like now I know where. Okay, that makes sense. But
Hatebreed was on the Ozfest that we did. They were on the full whole year. They did the whole year because the way the Ozfest used to work back in the day, it was.
You guys did the international one too, right?
Yeah, we did some international shows for the Ozfest too. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the way it used to work is it was 2 legs, and most bands would either get the first leg or the second leg. But some bands were lucky enough to do the whole tour. We were one of the bands that was, that got lucky and did the whole tour. But Hatebreed also, I think it was us, Hatebreed, Meshuggah, and OTEP.
Yeah.
Did the whole tour. And then everybody else was half the tour. Like Glassjaw did half the tour.
That band probably didn't do very well back then.
Well, I mean, back then, it was definitely an odd show for them to be playing, at least that fan base wasn't necessarily like a post-hardcore fan base. But all the bands were so excited to have them on that tour that it wouldn't have mattered, because all the bands were so like, all the bands loved Glassjaw at that time, Yeah. So I remember us and the Hatebreed guys and just being fucking stoked that Glassjaw was on it, to have that kind of creative band on a tour like Ozfest. I mean, one could have argued that Chevelle wasn't the kind of band you would put on the Ozfest either. They were on the Ozfest that year as well.
Yeah. I always thought Send the Pain Below was too much of My Own Summer by Deftones.
The what? Oh, the
Send the Pain Below. That intro riff their chorus riff, which is also the intro riff, is basically the same as Deftones' My Own Summer. Or not My Own Summer, Be Quiet and Drive.
Yeah. I mean, that chord progression, and I don't mean to break your heart, but that chord progression was used long before the Deftones.
Oh, for
it's
sure.
Just the Deftones did it in such an amazing, classy way, really genuine, and full of feeling for sure, that, it sticks as one of the greatest times the 1/6 chord progression has been used is without a doubt Be Quiet and Drive. Without a doubt.
Yeah.
I can think of a couple other good ones, but that one without a doubt.
Good Deftones riffs or good riffs where someone
else
played the exact.
Some other good Deftones songs, yeah, for sure.
All right, what's yours?
Well, for me, definitely Bored was like one of the coolest fucking songs. Engine Number 9 was one of the coolest Deftones songs, But Bored was like the song that I remember getting. I saw the Deftones open up for, it was Korn and somebody else at the Limelight in New York City. It was the Deftones, Korn and one other band, and I don't
Would that have been
remember
the
who the
Helmet
fuck it
tour?
was. No, it was like a Korn radio show for K Rock or
Oh,
something
okay.
like that. But the Deftones were doing the tour. Were on tour with them, and there was one other band that I can't fucking remember, man. But I remember getting like a little demo tape. Back then, cassettes were still being passed around, and I remember a
Yeah.
little black cassette tape that was the Maverick, sampler for the Deftones, and it had "Bored" and 7 words on it, and I remember thinking 7 words, it's a little too jumpy, I was a little bit more artsy, and I didn't take to the whole like jump, 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 jump thing, right? But Bored pretty much like let me realize, but this is what they really kind of do. They do this really.
Yeah.
7 words just kind of sounds like the hip kind of song they did at the moment. And then when I heard Adrenaline, I realized, fuck, I was right. They are exactly like Bored, really conceptual, thematic, very in-depth music with great melody. And, 7 words was just like the happier song on the album, if
Yeah.
you will.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of mine, and I mean it's everyone's, but
How did 7 words, we're talking amongst huge Deftones fans here. So
yeah.
how did 7 words sit with you when you first heard it? Did you think like, this is what the Deftones is like? Or were you
So
like,
so I did a whole Deftones discography run through with Fallon from Kitty, like where we went album by album, track by track, and did everything that's up until now. Like we haven't done the newest one that's not out yet, but we both got on at around the Fur. So I do remember hearing Deftones stuff on Adrenaline. I mean, on
okay,
Around the Fur.
okay.
No, I had it right first time, Adrenaline. But I didn't actively listen to them until Around the Fur. So going back, and one of my biggest fucking gripes about that record is you have Terry Date, who had done Pantera, has done legendary records that sound fucking great.
Mm-hmm.
Why does that Deftones record sound like the guitars were recorded in a fucking wind tunnel?
Well, Adrenaline is kind of like questionable like that, where you're like,
That's why I
wait a
don't like it.
second, it
Like,
doesn't sound as, it does, yeah, it's got a little bit, I think what might have happened, they might have recorded that album like in their recordings, in like their rehearsal studio.
yeah, I
They
don't.
might have done it through all dynamic mics and something like that. Because it isn't like as big sounding as a Terry Date mix and recording for sure.
Yeah.
I
So I've
agree.
always had
What do you
issues
think
with
about
it.
what somebody asked? Somebody asked, what about Passenger? What was the first time when you first
So
heard Passenger with Maynard on it? What did you say?
so here's the funny thing, and I think always speaks to why I like the stories behind shit as opposed to just listening to something in music.
Mm-hmm.
I had read when White Pony was coming out that I think it was in Guitar World. Stefan was talking about working with Maynard and was talking about that song, and he was like, we just kind of wanted to experiment. We wanted to kind of make it, more Tool-esque. And so Maynard was like, "Oh, well, this thing you're doing, you gotta kind of," and I might have the tempo wrong, but he's like, "You guys, let's just say you guys are playing 4/4 for this song. That's how this song is written for you guys. Well, what we do is we put it in like 6/4, so it sounds one way, but like this other kind of tempo and this other vibe is what's going on, and that's what gives it that kind of that groove." And it was kind of in hearing that where it was like, oh, so like, it wasn't just like, oh, Maynard sent over his vocals and that was that. It was, no, like he was in the room with us as we were kind of working on this and kind of helped shape it to be what it is. And to me, it's like, you don't really ever hear that side of Maynard in Tool or Perfect Circle or anything. It's always like he just does the lyrics and vocals and all that, and that's all he does. So to hear
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing that Maynard was there and helped the Deftones compose what is one of the greatest Deftones songs for sure?
yeah,
Because one could argue that Passenger is one of the coolest Deftones songs. And it's just like the Deftones. For me to hear this from you
yeah,
is actually, it actually is endearing to Maynard that he worked with them in the room and was trying to like get to something creative with them. But he really guided them to something that is definitively Deftone sounding.
Yes and no.
Because it doesn't sound like Tool really.
No, but
that
at
song
the time
is
it didn't sound like Deftones either. It kind of was a little bit different.
sure. It was a little experiment. They were experimenting, but I think the Deftones, we've always accepted them as the band that experiments, and it's okay to do.
I think that
Like
was
some bands, it's weird. Some bands, how do we pick as fans, like which bands we allow to experiment? Because there are some bands that you'll hear like when I hear Clutch do something other than Clutch, I'm like, please don't. I'm like, stop. Please go back. Go back to being Clutch. What was that?
I said, but what is Clutch to you? Because to me, Clutch can be one of 3 different styles and sounds, which is kind of the beauty of them.
Fuck. Well, Clutch to me, yeah. Clutch to me they definitely evolved a little bit in their sound, without a doubt. But to me, always the Escape from the Prison Planet will always be, the ultimate, Clutch album, without a doubt.
Right.
But like when Clutch experiments a little, it almost like hurts me because I'm so attached. I'm so attached to Escape from the Prison Planet,
Right.
Or like Rage Against the Machine. Like, would we accept if a band like Rage Against the Machine experimented?
Well, I guess sort of the way you can kind of answer that question is, I mean, isn't that basically what Audioslave was? Was them kind of pushing what people expected from the band? In literally the truest sense of the word, the band.
That's an interesting answer.
Like,
Sure. Audioslave was,
because you hear a song like a Stone, and I don't think I would necessarily think of that being a Rage Against the Machine kind of song. But then you look at the cover they did of the Ghost of Tom Joad on the Renegades album.
Yeah.
You look at the cover they did of, or not the cover, God, what is that fucking song on Battle for LA where it's like Zach's kind of really quiet and he's like, and the only lyric I can think of in my head is like where he's like, where Jesus stripped bare and da-na-na, and then the guitar comes in and it's like, wow, dun, like, and kind of has that typical Rage riff. But it's
they kind of do a little bit of the
slower,
stripping down the song. They kind of go into those things. But let's say Rage Against the Machine never broke up, right? Okay. Let's say they never disbanded, and the last thing we heard was Evil Empire. And now let's say they came out with Like a Stone 2 years after Evil Empire.
That's it, Born of a Broken Man. Thank you.
That's right. Okay. I remember that track. That's my homie, Ruben. Ruben, you killed it with answering that. But not a broken man. What was it? Yeah. Born of a broken man, but not a broken man. Something like that, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That song is fucking killer, dude. Rage Against the Machine is definitely, without a doubt, one of the fucking greatest pocket just grooves, like fucking make you like not pay attention too much to the song, but make you really feel it.
I mean, to cut you off, we got like 2 minutes remaining, so we can just keep going when this goes and log back on to finish in like a half hour.
Well, I mean, we could cut it off, but before we do, I do want to, because some people ask some questions, and I want to make sure.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We can come back on.
That's how I scribble. Yeah. Oh, okay, we could just log back on. Look, that's how I scribble. Yeah. That's terrible, huh?
Hey, man, you can sell those for a lot of money. You can sell those for a lot of money.
It looks like a kid wrote it. My handwritten lyrics, though, for the album are going to be I'm actually starting to practice. You see, I don't just use my phone anymore. I'm actually starting to practice handwriting all over again.
Your calligraphy.
But yeah, how do you want to do it then? You want to just log it off?
Left, so
you let me know then.
I'll end this right now.
But when we come back, we'll answer a couple of the questions that people ask. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, let's do that. I'll end this right now, and then I'll log right back on, and we'll answer these questions, or you can answer those questions.
Awesome. We'll be right back. All right, guys. Hold up, and we're gonna get to the questions.
All right. All right.
I think I'm on. Am I on? What's up?
You're on.
We back right on.
There you go. So let's get to one of your questions that people ask you. Excuse me.
Just general stuff, really. somebody had asked if we're getting a lot of people asking about touring, like when shows will occur, how shows will occur, where, if internationally shows will occur. I'm getting the feeling that people in South America are starting to get worried that they might not get shows for like a really, really long time.
Are they having issues right now?
No, but I think because of the COVID stuff and because touring is going to take a little bit to uptick, I think that it's going to be people in South America are like, are we going to even see any bands for like the next year or two? But I know that we're trying to do what we can. Definitely, my booking agents are trying to book shows right now. There's like a September-October tour that hopefully we'll be announcing soon for the U.S. There's some Mexico shows also within that tour. You know, I think Monterrey is one of the cities. Maybe the DF and Guadalajara hopefully will be in there for September, October 2020. Because it's definitely not 2019. We ain't going back in time. We don't want to go. We don't want to go through this shit again, you know. And then some people were. Somebody asked if Peru
shows.
What was that?
I see someone asked, "Are you doing any virtual shows?"
Not yet. Not yet. Just basically letting the single exist first, you know, and just letting people digest at least one song. Eventually, once I have more songs out, I am going to do some streaming stuff. Like I'm going to do a live from Fuel Music thing that we're planning, and a couple other cool things. Hopefully some in-store signings when nearing where the album comes out that we'll be streaming also. The signing and the performance at the store and stuff like that. But you know, we're still working. Luckily, we have a lot of time and it's a lot of questionable stuff going on with promotion and touring in the music industry. So, yeah, just trying to, you know, be patient and keep mind of what's important, if anything. You know, not trying to rush nothing. And sometimes I feel even terrible being that guy that doing all this greatness. It's like, check out my new song, my new music, you know?
Yeah.
But in reality, I do want everyone to know that we were supposed to put it out before this happened, and somehow the universe delayed some things, and we didn't put it out. And hopefully, you know, being able to have a little bit of time will allow us a more pleasant listening experience for everyone out there, you know. But people were asking when will I get to Peru? Hopefully Peru soon, man. I want to try to plan a tour for South America sometime in early 2021, if possible. Hopefully that'll work out. I'd love to go back to Brazil, Argentina. I'd love to play some of these songs in South America. I think they're really going to connect with kids down there. Somebody was asking if we're going to Brazil and Argentina. For sure, those are places that I must go. If I go to South America and I don't go to Brazil and Argentina and Peru, I don't know, because not a lot of bands go to Peru all the time. You know, Peru is not like a country that a lot of touring bands visit, but I would love to go back. El Nino had an amazing show there, and the fans were incredibly loving. When we showed up at the hotel, there was like 100 El Nino fans outside the hotel, like waiting for us. We didn't even know how they find out that we were there, but you know, when I guess when you live in a country that you don't see a lot of bands, that you really live that experience as best you can, you know. So hopefully we'll get there. Brasil, Argentina, Peru. I heard your questions. We're trying to book tours. Somebody had asked what vape products I like to use. I use Left Coast Extract. I don't know if y'all heard of them, but they're a company from California, makes amazing oils and just, you know, great tasting product. That's all you got to say about that. Somebody had asked something private. How's my relationship to Dave and Laz now? And, you know, unfortunately, I'm not really at freedom to speak about that. That's something that maybe I could eventually say for a book, you know, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and maybe
You
somehow
probably
it'll be
can't answer the
spoken.
question.
Somehow it'll be spoken about eventually, but, you know, it's not going to be from my end for a very long time. You know, I want to try to let go of resentment. Am I happy? No. Am I upset? Sure. You know, but I'm going to try to let go of resentment because that's just the only thing that really feels right, you know?
You probably can't answer this. Is there a statute of limitations or like a sunset clause on an NDA? Does it expire after a certain point?
Our NDA is not, yeah, our NDA is not forever.
Okay,
But,
interesting. I didn't know if
but
they
you know,
were.
it allows, I'd say that NDAs are fair because it allows enough time. All it is a piece of paper that allows the parties to get over it.
Okay.
You know what it is? That's really
Yeah.
what it is. Because it's so
I've never.
personal. In situations like that, it's so personal. Everybody gets really, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I took it very personally what was occurring. So
I know
to
you and I
me,
did one of these right
so
after.
to like be like, okay, well, you know, it's time to let go. It's the best way to do it. Or else,
Yeah.
you know, you're a slave to being upset about something all the time. You're a slave to fucking the past, really. And who the fuck
Yeah.
wants to do that? Because in the past, we've all made millions of mistakes, right? All of us.
Yeah.
Not just me. Everybody makes mistakes in the past. And the beauty about life is learning from that. And I think I learned from my mistakes this time around, for sure. Somebody asked what my inspiration was for composing. And I think I've answered that a lot in a lot of the interviews that I've done recently. But mostly life and just personal experiences that I don't necessarily have conclusions to yet. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I write out of personal experience that I may not know what the conclusion is, and perhaps in writing music I am seeking for an answer in some kind of weird way, you know, myself.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why the more genuine that feeling is, perhaps is why it connects with people that are also seeking an answer for something, you know, whether it's their own personal obstacle, a challenge they're facing. I've realized in life that the loss of somebody you truly care about, how much it impacts people, man, and how much when we're young, we don't realize that. When we're young, we live through life, and death isn't something that really impacts us. When you get older and you start losing friends and family, you start realizing, holy shit, this is temporary.
Yeah.
This is temporary. I don't have these people. They're gone. They're gone because this is temporary. What the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
So I think loss drives a lot of what I write about. You know, having lost family members to me, I mean, it's something that I still have a hard time not crying about it if I start to think about, you know.
Yeah.
But like all other things, you don't want to be a slave to that feeling. You just want to remember, not forget, and talk about it. You know, talk about it with your friends. Like if I talk about it in songs, I kind of feel like I'm talking about it with my friends.
Right.
And then somebody else had asked the good in the dark in Il Nino.
From a lyrical standpoint or from a business
I
and
don't know.
personal standpoint?
I don't know. I wasn't. Somebody's asking, is the single representation of the album and the main sound? The single is the more stripped down version. The single is the most stripped down song on the album.
There's
The
some
rest of the
interesting
album,
shit on that album.
the rest of the album has more things. There's like even drum beats Oscar laid down on some of the album, and there's like some electronic stuff on one song, and there's like a piano song only. So there's different little things. So, Die Alone is just like a really great introduction because there isn't a lot of players on it.
Yeah.
It really is just like a genuine, here's a song, here's me, this is what I sound like.
Yeah.
But somebody had asked about the good and bad in El Nino, and I mean, obviously I can't get into too much of the details of what the good, they asked what the good and the dark of El Nino was. I can't get into all those details. I can't get into the details of the good. The good was amazing. We didn't realize that early on that we were going to make an impact at all. I remember being in my car, going to Roadrunner Records. Laz was in the car. We were driving to Roadrunner Records for some meeting, like fuck knows what. I don't know. Look at pictures to like okay pictures, promotional pictures or something. And I'll never forget this moment. And we were driving past the Intrepid, and I don't know if anybody's ever been to New York. The Intrepid is the big, the big aircraft carrier that is now a museum that's parked right on the Hudson River. And I remember still the visual of I'm looking to the right, and there's Laz, and there's the Intrepid, and Laz goes, "What are your expectations of what of this album? Revolution hadn't been released yet." And I remember telling him even back then, I don't have any expectations. I don't know what the expectations are. I remember telling him I don't have any expectations. All we could do is just write music that we think is cool.
Right.
And I'll never forget that moment because even back then, having been signed, having all this pressure on, and I really felt like what is the expectation? The expectation is do the best you can as a musician. That's it. I mean, and moments like that, I think, is what led the great feeling, at least me personally, the things that really, really I can hold on to and take to the grave, and say, God forbid I die next week, I could say, yeah, I lived a great life, man, had some amazing moments, met some amazing people. But the good was definitely amazing. Just, I don't know any other word other than fucking amazing. We didn't expect it. I didn't expect it. When the song started taking off, it was a huge positive surprise. I thought we were too heavy to be accepted, even though we were doing like little, melodic things and trying to be more radio maybe, or just crossover is really the word. But in crossing over, you're hoping for bigger fan bases,
Right.
But none of it was expected. The best parts that I remember were like when it really started taking off, when people really loved it. When the fans, the show, seeing the fans singing the lyrics back, to me was a fucking mind blow, dude. I was like, no fucking way. We're putting this many kids in rooms, and like 25% of our lyrics are in Spanish, and we're in like Germany, or like we're in Russia, or we're in friggin' the US even, So that the good of it was something that is I couldn't even explain. I'm just grateful for it. I know that I'll be able to take it to the grave and be like, fuck, what an amazing experience I had. Even with all the bad shit that happened in my life, what really do I have to fucking complain about, dude, I mean, I got my own struggles to deal with even right now, but the good was amazing. The fans, the exposure, and the media loving us at one point was the downside of that, was the downside of all that, like, just as depressing as it was exciting. Sure. The downside when things weren't going as good, and I don't want to talk about the dark of El Nino as a question posed, but the downside was terrible. I mean, when you're so attached to something for that long, and even when we were first beginning, even into the second, third album, when things started turning and music industry started changing, and fads started, changing, and what the media expected from groups started changing, what the listener expected from groups started changing. There was a downside, and there was, a lot of questioning and stuff like that. But still, the good parts never really went away. And even through the separation and me leaving the band and all that, I'm so happy I could hold on to all those memories. Some people go through this and then they feel resentment for a long time, you know, because I've met band members, and and I know they know who they are. The guys that are out there that broke up with bands that I know are having issues, that you talk to me and you tell me the issues you're having, you know, or like, oh, I left because of this, and I'm lucky that at least I get a little bit of a fresh breath, put new air in the lungs, write some new music. It's different than what I was doing. I'll get back to the metal, but you know, for now, I really need to just, focus on being genuine and just doing things that are really genuine. There was not last song. Sorry about that. I'm not going to sing to you guys. I'm not going to sing to you guys now. But somebody had asked that, what was it like to shoot videos back in the day? Because I guess somebody saw the Zoom conference that I had done with my homie Jeremiah from Concrete Dream, and Tommy Roulette from Jinx, and Shifty Shell Shock, and AJ from Fire from the Gods, and who else was on that? A bunch of really good friends. Okay, Danny Diablo was on it, and I had said how expensive the fucking What Comes Around video was to shoot. So somebody had asked, what was the experience like, you know, shooting the videos that are that expensive? Like, what did all that money really go to? And I guess maybe people are really interested to hearing this shit, because the way the music industry is now, everything is a budget cut.
Yep.
Everything is a budget cut. If you think politicians have budget cuts, you wait till you fucking hear the music industry budget cuts, buddy. All right? But anyway, you got a lot. Back in the day, if you had that kind of money to shoot a video, you got a lot. You had catering trucks. You had a fucking 10-story boom with lights and cameras on it. You know, you had trucks of, like, you know, carrying any kind of camera equipment you would ever fucking want. You had people there doing your makeup. You know, there was a trailer you go into and you sit down and they do your makeup. Then there's a clothing trailer and you go in and there's clothing. A lot of people think that expensive videos, the artist just shows up looking cool, like, oh shit, he looks cool like that all the time. Look at how fresh he looks in the video. He must be cool. Oh, no. Most of them show up in pajamas. And then there's, you know, a room where you could go and they kind of show you, look, this is what the wardrobe person has today. And then you kind of, from there, you use your own brain and say, what do I like? What would I like to wear? What would my fans think, you know, is not going to be like, what the hell is that guy doing? Why is he wearing a frog outfit on the video? You know? But, and then other than that, there was some things that were incredibly surprising. There was a lot of things that were pleasing about it, but obviously later on you go to realize, God, we paid a lot of money for that, you know? When the record label's getting to, you know, recouping, which Roadrunner Records did recoup, but, you know, it took a long-ass time, dude. Holy shit. And then I remember there was some, like, shocking negative things about it that I like, for example, I never knew that when you shoot a video, you're supposed to lip sync. That was unknown to me before, even on God Save Us. All right, now you guys might go like, oh, goddamn, Christian is a naive fucking dude. He didn't even fucking know. He's a 24-year-old fucking musician touring, and he didn't even know that bands lip sync. But to my defense, the only video thing I ever understood of anything ever was MTV Headbangers Ball. You know, it's like I watched videos on Headbangers Ball, and that's all I understood. I never questioned how do they get done. You know what I mean? I never asked, like, how do they shoot music videos? Even into my early 20s, I remember being like, they show up and they play the song, and then they don't record it. They don't record the audio, but they're playing the song, and then the director matches it up somehow. I don't know how they do it, but that's how they do it. So the day that I found out that you actually lip sync, that there's like a speaker playing the song, and you're supposed to act like you're singing the song, that was what comes around in the desert. And I remember my heart. I remember being heartbroken and being like, what do you mean we don't get to perform the song like we did for the God Save Us video? You know? Because for the God Save Us video, they let us perform it, you know? And holy shit, I almost lost you. They let us perform it, and there was like, well, I'll since it's the last question, I'll just hold it so you don't fall again. They let us perform the song, and they gave me a mic, and there was a PA, and I sang it, and Dave played with click track, but that was the thing that allowed them to sync the track, was the click through Dave's ear. But everybody else was just kind of like playing, you know. The director let us do whatever the hell we wanted. We played the song. But for what comes around, we show up at this fucking massive, like, video production affair in the middle of the desert. And I remember doing the whole trailer, getting ready, and, you know, what are you going to wear? How, you know, where are you going to sit? Where's each band member going to go? And then the moment when they're telling you, oh, and the speakers are going to be playing the song, you just got to make sure that you look like you're singing it. Dude, it was like fucking heartbreak, bro. I was like, yo, are you kidding me? What do you mean? I don't get a microphone and like a PA to sing the song so we could shoot it for real? And that was me. That was my first ever attempt at acting, because that's what I was doing on the What Comes Around video, was fucking acting my ass off. And that's it. That were all the questions, man. I don't got anything else. We probably freaking bored people enough anyway.
No, I mean, this is fun. I mean, like I said, when I asked you to do this, I was like, oh, it was easy to just bullshit with you. I mean, one of the things they ended up talking about was Aaliyah on the thing. I don't know if I'll keep it in, because I don't know if anyone really gives a shit about her. But
well, I think some people I think would care about the Aaliyah thing. I mean, you know, she was, no matter what kind of music you listen to, Aaliyah was an amazing artist, dude.
There was a song I learned today. I threw on an Aaliyah's greatest hits, because her shit, other than the first record, her stuff is not on any streaming service.
People are laughing because I dropped the phone.
Yeah. It was one of those things I was listening to a song, and there was one that popped up that I was like, I didn't know this was Aaliyah. I thought this was a Brandy song. So, I mean,
what song?
I thought it was a Brandy. I thought it was Brandy.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I found a song today that I didn't even know was one of hers, that I was like, oh, I know this song. I just didn't know it was hers. So,
you know who's dope too?
I mean,
yeah, not as dancey, but Tony Braxton.
Oh, dude, that was my wife and I's wedding song.
Tony Braxton is a fucking badass songwriter, dude.
Yeah.
I don't care. If you're a metalhead and you even say anything bad about Tony Braxton, we might have to fight.
Dude,
she's just that badass.
One of my favorite songs that I've been jamming the shit out of lately that kind of fits that kind of vibe is Foxy Brown with Blackstreet. Man, that's a fucking sexy groove.
Mm-hmm.
God damn. That's a fucking
There's some good music out there, man. I remember pop music went through like a really dark phase, but I think that
Alanis Morissette, like Jagged Little Pill era, or like, what do you mean?
No, like a dark phase where I didn't, maybe dark isn't the right word. It went through a happy phase.
Oh, okay. All right, gotcha.
Where pop music was extremely happy, but I do think that, like, for example, like Lady Gaga and 21 Pilots are really changing what pop music is supposed to sound like, you know? And now you're even having artists like Justin Bieber do like darker sounding songs.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, I guess. It's the evolution of pop culture. That's something I'll never be able to really figure out, though. I've always thought, you know, okay, I'm a music lover so much to the point that I could maybe kind of figure out where music is going. And then something happens and you're like, fuck, I'll never be able to figure this shit out. How the hell did that become so famous? Like, okay, ready?
Yeah.
And I get it, what made people like this, and I'm not knocking. I'm not the kind of person to knock on somebody who's just doing what they like, you know? But if we're going to talk and say anything about pop culture today, we have to give the props to rock and roll, okay? All these artists, huge pop artists that are really making a change today, that people really love today, like Gaga. Gaga was a rocker. Post Malone is a rocker. Tekashi 6ix9ine was a metalhead kid from the Bronx, from Brooklyn. Okay, I could keep going. You know, there's other artists in hip hop or pop, whatever you want to say it. But this song, for me, I was like, I'll never get it. Old Town Road, okay? But the day that I found out that it's a 9 Inch Nails song that is sampled,
yeah.
I went back and listened to the song, and I fell in love with the instrumental version, even though I still, you know, couldn't dig like because I mean, obviously, I'm here living in California, right? I don't understand nothing about Old Town Road. I mean, there's some, equestrian fields around us, but I don't have a horse. You know what I'm saying? I don't have cowboy boots. But I'm not saying that maybe I wouldn't want to have one, but I can't like relate to that culture too much. But I imagine, you know, to some people it did. But it's a 9 Inch Nails song. So even the things that are killing it, the most successful song all of last year came from a 9 Inch Nails song. Hello? Maybe media. Let's bring it back to rock a little bit, you know? Pop culture. Let's bring it back to rock a little bit. It'll be okay. I think we know what kind of music people would want to hear. Look at what's happening in pop. All these people that are really taking and driving the boat, they're all just rockers, you know? And I think it's awesome.
Well, did you have any more questions? You say you had one more, or?
No, that was it. That was all the questions I had. Technically, the last one was what did you get for shooting a video for that much money? And then you talked about Aaliyah, so I just wanted to put out there that, hey, you know, pop culture is cool, and the best people in pop culture, they actually are rock people. They're rock fans. They listen to rock. Like CeeLo Green. CeeLo Green listens to rock and alternative music, you know? And these are some of the most badass songwriters in hip-hop and in pop music, too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But all right, brother.
I love my...
Let's call it then.
Yeah. Well, I was just... Yeah. I mean, this is an hour and a half, so... This is about as long as the podcast, technically, if I don't edit any of it.
Right on. Well,
where can everyone...
Thank you guys for logging on. What are you going to do? I think I'm going to go for a walk. Try to burn some calories or something.
Probably going to watch some terrible TV here in a minute with my wife.
Right on. Right on. Well, have fun, brother. And we'll let everybody know when the podcast is coming out. The podcast was a little bit more... I think we stayed a little bit more on some topics, but, you know.
Yeah.
This is just IG Live. We're out here. What are we doing? We're just like, what are we going to do on a Wednesday, really? You know?
Yeah. No,
it's kind of like a middle of the week catch up, and I'm probably going to try to do one a week to at least catch up. Maybe we can do another one soon. You know what I'm saying? Let's catch up again.
Yeah, absolutely.